And tonight, I am chairing this hearing of the Department of People Who Work for a Living. I want to thank the Teamsters for their hospitality and allowing us to use their hall tonight. I also want to recognize Chris Barrett, who is president of the Charlotte Metrolina Labor Council. And to all of you, thank you so much for being here tonight and for making your voices heard. Because folks, now more than ever, working people must stand up and speak up. Every day, unelected billionaire Elon Musk and his fake government Doge are attacking federal workers and gutting government services that we all rely on, like public safety, public education, Social Security, Medicaid, and veterans benefits. And to make it even worse, Musk is making these cuts and promoting privatization of the government all so that billionaires like him can make even more money and pay even less in taxes, while you and I get left behind. These attacks on our government, the whiplash changes in policy, can be confusing and overwhelming, which is exactly what the billionaires and the bosses want. They want to divide us, distract us, and discourage us from standing up and standing together. They want us to believe that nothing we do will make a difference, that there's no way that we can change things. But friends, we know better.
That's right.
The billionaires and the bosses have a strategy of divide and conquer. Well, we working folks have a strategy too. It's called Unite and Triumph, which is why the AFL-CIO created the Department of People Who Work for a Living to bring working people together to stand up and fight back against this billionaire takeover of our government. To talk more about the department and lifting up working people's voices, we are thrilled tonight to have Liz Schuler, the phenomenal president of the National AFL-CIO. So please get on your feet and give a warm North Carolina welcome to President Liz Schuler.
Wow, thank you so much, Mary B. And what an amazing leader leading our North Carolina AFL-CIO. Let's give it up for Mary B. And I echo her thanks to our host tonight, Teamsters Local 71. Thank you so much for having us here. And the team at the AFL-CIO here in North Carolina who helped bring all of this together. I see you out there. Thank you so much for your hard work. And Chris, again, I want to acknowledge your leadership of the Charlotte Metrolina Labor Council. And I know we have Sebastian here as well, wearing a few different hats tonight, right? So thank you so much. And I just want to thank all the panelists and all the folks who are here tonight to really bring to life what is happening out there. We've been having these hearings, as Mary B. said, the Department of People Who Work for a Living. We said if Elon Musk can have his Department of Government Efficiency, we can have our own damn department. The Department of People Who Work for a Living. And we're the ones who know what's going on out there, right? These hearings that we've been having all across the country over the last couple of weeks, hundreds and hundreds of working people coming forward courageously, by the way, to tell their stories. Has been so incredibly impactful. And that's what tonight is all about. This is about hearing from you. And this is about bringing the voices of working people into the conversation. Because when you think about these cuts, like Mary B. said, that we have been seeing, I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, everything in between, the common thread is that these cuts touch every single one of us in this country. And if you listen to Trump and Elon Musk and Doge, they want you to believe this is about some DC, quote, bureaucrat, right? Some number on a spreadsheet. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. This is about real people. And that's how they think they're going to get away with these cuts, right? They're making it about something that's so far away in Washington, D.C. Does anyone know, though, the percentage of workers in the federal sector who are actually outside of Washington, D.C.? What do you think? What percentage?
90%.
Almost 90%. It's around 85% of the federal workforce is outside Washington, D.C. In fact, I think there's about 85,000 federal workers right here in North Carolina. Think about that. 15,000 alone in Mecklenburg and the surrounding counties. Right here. Right? And I'm staying at a hotel and I'm looking right across the street at a regional VA medical center. You think it's going to be impacted by what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so that's where the labor movement comes in, right? And all the stories that we're going to hear tonight and we're going to collect and we're going to share from all across the country, we are the ones who can show what is actually happening out there. This is about our families. This is about our communities. This is about the services that we all count on. When they gut our Social Security offices, that means people right here in North Carolina do not get their hard-earned benefits that they earned, right? When they come after our Medicaid, our communities will lose health care. And when they get rid of workers who help our veterans, the people who make sure, who have protected our country, and then when they come home, do you think they deserve to be taken care of?
Yes.
Absolutely. What about us having safe food? Clean water?
Yes.
Does that matter?
Yes.
No, they're going to cut all of this just to give people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk another tax cut that they do not need. And that is just wrong, and it hurts all of us. So that's why, as Mary B. said, we started the Department of People Who Work for a Living, just to make sure that we bring to life what this actually means and why it matters. And every single one of us here tonight have a role to play. And we need to make sure that our friends, our families, our neighbors know what this means. And we were just talking in the back of the room how people take for granted federal workers and the work they do. And so that's up to us. It's up to us to let those legislators know, whether they're two-dimensional or three-dimensional, what this means. And so we're going to take these stories to Washington, D.C. and make sure this president and this administration knows. And that is how we fight back, folks. That is how we build the kind of future that we all want. And I am so looking forward to hearing from you, hearing your stories, and I'm honored to be a part of tonight. So thank you so much. And let's get started.
Thank you, President Schuler. Thank you for your leadership and for creating this opportunity to lift up working people's voices. Please give another hand to President Liz Schuler. As she mentioned, the Department of People Who Work for a Living are convening hearings like this across the country to demand that elected officials, like Senator Tom Tillis, put the interests of working people first. But you all may have noticed that Senator Tillis doesn't seem to want to hear from us. He doesn't hold town halls. He didn't accept our invitation to be here tonight. Senator Tillis and others in Congress want to tune us out. They want to ignore the anger and anxiety we feel as we struggle with layoffs, service cuts, rising prices, and a tanking economy. Tonight, we make it clear that working people will not be ignored, and we will not be silent. Working people are the real experts. We make the economy run, and we know what's good for our communities and our neighbors. And that's steady jobs, living wages, decent benefits, safe working conditions. The government needs to hear from us just as much as it does from Elon Musk. So tonight, we have local folks lined up who will testify before a panel of community leaders about the impacts that Musk and Doge are having on their lives and on the Charlotte community. We have limited time together tonight. We don't have an open mic, but we know that every one of you has a story to tell. So I hope that some of you took an opportunity before we started the program to meet with our videographer and tell your story. We'll have an opportunity for folks to do that at the end of the program. And you can also take this home with you and use the QR code and tell us your story when you get home. Because as we said, the Department of People Who Work for a Living will compile all the stories and testimony into a report for our elected officials in Washington. And it is so important that we tell these stories and that we raise our voices, because together we can make a difference. After all, there are a whole lot more of us postal workers, nurses, bus drivers, and working folks than there are billionaires. Our power increases exponentially with our numbers. And as more and more of us stand up and speak up, and our voices grow louder and louder, we will win justice for federal workers and for all of us. So if you're committed to making your voice heard and committed to fighting back against this billionaire takeover of our government, then when I say together we win, you say count me in. Together we win.
Count me in.
Together we win.
Count me in.
Together we win.
Count me in.
Awesome. Let's get started with tonight's program. Tonight we have a panel of community leaders who are going to listen to the testimony and respond to what they have heard. So I'd like to introduce our panelists tonight. On my right, we have Representative Jordan Lopez, who represents North Carolina House District 112. Please give a hand to Representative Lopez. On my left, we have Mary Jose Espinoza with the Carolina Migrant Network. Please give Mary Jose. Next, we have Sebastian Fetchelek with the Iron Workers, who is also the Vice President of the Charlotte Metrolina Labor Council. And we have Reverend Dr. Rodney Sadler, who is the Director of the Center for Social Justice and Reconciliation at Union Presbyterian Seminary. We hope to also be joined by Councilwoman Tijuana Brown, who represents the 3rd District on the Charlotte City Council. She is stuck in traffic, so hopefully she will make it here. She's also a proud member of the Communication Workers of America. And of course, we have our cardboard stand-in for no-show, Senator Tillis. I want to thank all of our panelists tonight for being here and for your leadership in the Charlotte area. We have 6 people lined up who will provide testimony about the impacts of these cuts on their lives and their families and people they care about. After they give their testimony, the leaders on this listening panel will reflect on how they will amplify and lift up the testimony that they heard tonight. And then at the end of the evening, we'll talk about next steps and how we keep the pressure up on Senator Tillis and our other elected officials to step up and stop these attacks on our lives and our communities. So with that, I would like to introduce our first person to testify, Mary Bowder, a member of the United Auto Workers 5285, who's going to talk about Indigenous people's rights. Please give it up for Mary.
While I desire government that runs efficiently and intelligently and in such a way that is mindful of its spending, the cuts that Donald Trump and Elon Musk have made prove that they are not aligned with my ideals and values. On January 20th, Mr. Trump swore an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. On that very day, he signed executive orders stripping protection of rights of my people, Native Alaskans. With no regard for the protections they offered to Indigenous people and other marginalized groups, he deemed diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility programs radical and wasteful, and ordered their elimination throughout federal government. Of course, a glimpse of his true motive behind that action was revealed when he signed Executive Order Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. With the simple stroke of a pen, he snubbed his nose at protections placed to honor subsistence rights, as well as the authority of my people to establish an Indigenous sacred site in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, all under the guise of an altruistic desire for energy self-sufficiency. The damage to Indigenous people didn't stop there. The freeze placed on all grants and loans impacted more than 600 contracts involving Native tribes. Even after the rescinding of that order, many tribes have reported an inability to access funds. Furthermore, while Trump's firing of over 2,000 Indian Health Service employees was then reduced to 950 and ultimately rescinded by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., the buyout program offered to all federal employees may yet have the same consequence. A vacancy left by a doctor, dentist, or pharmacist could simply disappear. At the very least, a professional considering a vacated post would be a fool not to pause and think that an administration that has flipped and flopped on so many of their choices may ultimately determine that medical professionals serving Native tribes are unnecessary or inefficient. Trump's action in this arena is particularly alarming and proof of his lack of understanding of Indigenous peoples. In such areas as health, Native trust is guarded and difficult to earn. So many of my ancestors have died rather than risk being reprimanded and ridiculed by medical professionals who seek to judge rather than to understand and serve. Reckless turnover in Indian health services for the sake of the bottom line cannot be tolerated. The whole purpose of a government has never been to serve itself or to turn a profit. A true leader should aspire to run a government that benefits its people, that operates in such a way that honors the ideals of those on whose backs a society was built. My grandma lived more than half of her life before 1965, when Alaskan Native women were finally guaranteed the right to vote. We fought too hard and have come too far to allow politicians with pens to undermine Native rights. Mr. Tillis, will you please stand up for your Indigenous constituents? My name is Mary Bauder, Aleut, UAW Local 5285, and I work for a living.
Thank you so much, Mary, for your testimony and for lifting up the issues and the cuts that are affecting our Native population. Please give another hand to Mayor Bauder. Our next person to testify is Sean Montgomery. He is a worker at the Charlotte Douglas Airport, a member of SCIU, and a veteran. Please welcome Sean.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? All right, good. It's my pleasure to be here today, and actually it's an honor to be asked to participate in such a great event. Like you said, the lady said, my name is Sean Montgomery. I am a proud United States Naval veteran. I served in the United States Navy. Thank you. served from 1989. I served during Desert Storm, and I served until 1993. I'm a native Charlottean. I'm proud of the city that I come from, but I've seen a lot of changes, a lot good and a lot not so good. Our primary concerns are, the realistic quality of our futures. With government cuts and federal takeaways, as a veteran, honestly, it concerns me on whether or not am I going to be able to receive the quality of health care that I've earned by serving. I have a younger cousin who is going to retire after serving 23 years in the United States Army, and I'm concerned about his future. We wouldn't all want to see his service being for nothing. Right. Just to have benefits cut and him not to be able to receive the quality of care. He's a family man just like myself, and I want to see the best for him, as in all veterans and in all citizens that live in every city and every county and every state in the United States of America. My primary duty at Charlotte Douglas Airport, I am an access control agent. I reinsure the safety and the security of aircrafts that have flown to and from internationally. I love my job, and I'm happy of where I work at. My question for Mr. Tillis would be, just like I serve my country, you should be a service to the men and women that work hard, that are the very fabric of what this country is made out of. And if you can't do that in an honorable way, then shame on you, and we'll do our best to get someone else in that position.
Yes. That's right.
And as far as locally is concerned, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, I can honestly say we want to provide the best quality lives for our families. That's all we're really trying to do. But a lot of us who are unspoken for are just trying to navigate and sustain in a very inflated economy. When I got out of the military in 1993, the United States was probably one of the best economies that I've ever seen in my life. And you forward the clock so many years later, I've never seen such an amount of uncertainty and despair and worry. I've served my country proudly. People who are blessed to become elected officials should act in accordance. There are to be a server and not just a receiver of perks and benefits. That's right. I can honestly say, as a worker at Charlotte Douglas Airport, a lot of things that we do, the demands of our jobs are unseen. We work very hard. We work in very strenuous, cold, and very hot conditions. I would just want Mr. Tillis to know that while Charlotte is a world-class city and we have some of the best entertainment things in the United States, just like the rest of the country, we're all in need of insurance in a very uncertain time. And the fact that he couldn't even show up tonight, he failed me. That's right. It's my priority duty when I was in the military to serve and protect, and it's his duty to serve. And by him not being here tonight is a very disservice.
All right. That's right.
Like I said, I didn't have a lot to say tonight, but I just wanted to touch bases on those things. Thank God for unions. Thank God for hardworking you people who are brave enough and bold enough, who are unselfish enough to stand up for people's rights, to stand up for people's concerns, and then have an undying thirst for justice and equality. I'm very proud to be a part of that. I am proud to have been asked to speak here tonight. I wish all of you the best in your endeavors. Have a good night, and thank you once again for having me.
Thank you, Sean, for that testimony. Thank you for your service to our country. Another hand for Sean. North Carolina has 17,000 VA workers. We have the 4th highest population of veterans in the nation, and all of those veterans are going to suffer greatly with these cuts, and it is really just unconscionable that we are cutting services for veterans who sacrificed so much for our country. And to all the veterans here, thank you for your service. The next person to testify is Mary Ann Ruiz, a community organizer with the Carolina Migrant Network. Please give a welcome to Mary Ann.
Hi everyone. Hi. This is my first time I'm going to be so honest speaking up on a podium like this. So first I just want to thank everyone for being present and having open hearts and open ears to what's going on. I'll go ahead and get started. So thank you. My name is Mary Ann Ruiz from Carolina Migrant Network. At the Carolina Migrant Network, we provide free legal representation to individuals in deportation proceedings and detention centers. I'm here to talk today about something that we're all facing, the impacts of the current administration on our communities, immigrant and union workers alike. Over the last few months, we have been witness to the attacks on our communities by this administration and the uncertainty that they've caused. I wanted to share a little bit of my family's migration story. In 1986, my family fled Nicaragua to the US in search of security and stability. My mom was the primary caregiver for her siblings as her parents migrated before her to provide for my aunts and uncles. For 2 years, she was both mom and dad to 3 siblings as a 17-year-old. And her migration story is that of many immigrants today. She was parentified to meet the family's needs. She had to deal firsthand with Nicaragua's political and economic situation in the 80s as a child, and had to eventually migrate to the US, like many immigrants, almost drowning on the way here. My family's story has a sharp contrast to those who are migrating today due to violence and economic disparities that we're seeing throughout the world. When my parents migrated in the 80s, they were embraced by a country who sought to provide refuge. They in turn were able to create stability for my sibling and I that they weren't able to provide for themselves. Recently, I spoke to Jay, an immigrant from Jordan who faced physical and psychological abuse for being a member of the LGBTQIA community. After a brutal attack and repeated death threats, Jay left his home country for the US and applied for asylum. He was able to attain a visa, but given the current administration, he still feels scared and uncertain about the future. Jay's story and that of my mom are starkly different. They both trusted our federal government. One was embraced and the other is still in limbo. Jay isn't very different from what our union brothers and sisters are dealing with, what you all are dealing with, the uncertainty of the federal government. We know that the feds are keen on defunding social safety nets, dismantling both the immigration system and organized labor, and demonizing anyone that stands up against them. I was able to attend a union meeting about a month ago where I heard many members facing job uncertainty. Federal funding cuts are impacting workers deeply and threatening our livelihoods. Union workers and immigrants have spent decades building this country with their hands, working long shifts with pride and with purpose. But when executive orders slash labor protections or threaten pensions, our communities feel it. When federal funding for housing, healthcare, and education gets cut, our families suffer. When billionaires get tax breaks and working families get told to tighten the belts, we're the ones choking. Those stories are unfortunately not unique. Most of us here can probably relate to my family story or to Jay's story. But we stand here today as workers who want and deserve dignity. We all want a fair shot and a safe home and a voice that's heard. Executive orders, policy changes, and budget cuts are the difference between stability and struggle, between being a family and being broken apart by borders and bureaucracy. We're here today to hear more about how we can and should work together to keep ourselves safe, because we keep us safe.
That's right.
And today I ask Tom Tillis, how do his policies protect the livelihood of workers and immigrants in North Carolina? I think we kind of know the answer, but still it needs to be asked. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary Ann, for that testimony, for telling your personal story, and for your advocacy for immigrant workers. It is so important in this time that all of us stand in solidarity with our immigrant neighbors and workers as they face this onslaught of illegal and unjust deportations and intimidation. So thank you again, Mary Ann. Our next person to testify is Dr. Doug Robinson, a retired physician and the Legislative and Communications Co-Chair for Healthcare Justice, North Carolina. Please give it up for Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. As was said, I'm a retired physician. I'm also a Navy veteran. I spend some of my time in retirement volunteering at a free clinic. So as all of you might know, a free clinic is where folks go when they can't afford health care or don't have health insurance. But let me tell you about what care is like in a free clinic. It's basic medical care. It's not comprehensive. We have limited access to specialty care. We can diagnose things, but we can't send folks to a specialist. We're basically just holding people together at that free clinic. Now, I'm a diabetes doctor, and my patients at the free clinic really have limited access to modern diabetic medications and treatments. But in 2023, we had a really good year. I was able to have some of my patients in the free clinic get on Medicaid through Medicaid expansion in this state. And they qualified for coverage, and they could have life-sustaining, comprehensive, full health care. 640,000 North Carolinians got on Medicaid through Medicaid expansion. They're our friends and neighbors, and Medicaid is critical to their health and the health of 3 million North Carolinians, about 1.4 million children. 50% of the kids who live in rural areas in North Carolina are on Medicaid. 30% of adults are on Medicaid. They cover 37% of births, and if you're going to end up in a nursing home, like many of us will someday, likely we'll be paying for it through Medicaid. So Medicaid is crucial to this state. And now this GOP budget resolution threatens significant cuts to Medicaid just to preserve tax breaks for the wealthy. If we reverse this wonderful Medicaid expansion we finally had in North Carolina, it's going to be devastating for the health of those 640,000 recipients who just got health care. And it's going to be devastating for our rural hospitals as well. So Tom, the first thing I'm going to ask you tonight is please don't vote for any cuts to Medicaid. Let me talk a little bit about VA healthcare. I was a Navy doc, and now I currently help veterans doing disability benefits exams. So in that job, I get to see the physical sacrifices that our veterans made and how they rely on VA healthcare and other VA services. There is no doubt that those services have improved tremendously over the years. I received some of my health care at a VA medical center, and it's just terrific. Under the Trump administration and DOGE, the VA plans to reduce the VA workforce by 80,000 positions, 17% cut. Many of those losing their jobs are going to be veterans. Those cuts come when VA health care needs are increasing. The VA already has staffing shortages and job vacancies, and with the passage of the PACT Act a few years ago, the increased number of disability claims has required more staffing. So it is the exact wrong time to be cutting jobs at the VA. So further massive job cuts are certain to degrade veterans' health care and services. I know that. So Tom, the second thing I'm going to ask you is please speak out against indiscriminate cuts to the VA healthcare workforce. So I want to end up on kind of an aspirational note here and talk a little bit about the landscape of healthcare in America and what we should aspire to as a nation. I wish I didn't have to be here talking about protecting Medicaid and free clinic healthcare safety net programs, because like I think most of us here, I look at healthcare as a human right to everybody. But unlike every other major industrialized country, we don't have universal health care. We regard health care as a commodity like gas or eggs. We link it to employment. So you lose your job, you lose your health care. We're the only one that does that in the whole world. It just doesn't work. Healthcare system is broken. We pay twice as much as other countries, about $13,000 per person per year. We get some of the worst health statistics: infant mortality, maternal mortality, life expectancy. Those are all worse for people of color as well. We have 25 million uninsured in this country. Worse than that, 1 in 4 have health insurance but can't afford the co-pays and the deductibles. So they're essentially underinsured, and they're going broke. We have the burden of medical debt in America, and it's the leading cause of bankruptcy. 100 million Americans have medical debt. And you can even count out the number of us who die due to lack of health insurance. It's about 70,000 people. So we know our system's fragmented, busted, it's costly for the people. Who does well? Who does well? Large, greedy health insurance corporations that prioritize shareholder profits over patients and harm us through delay and denial of care. Don't get me started on the pharmaceutical industry. So the answer is clear. We need a universal health care in the United States, publicly funded, free at the point of care with no co-pays or deductibles. On April 29th, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Pramila Jayapal will introduce the Senate and House versions of the 2025 Medicare for All Act, fulfill all those needs and more. So Tom, be a co-sponsor of the 2025 Medicare for All Act.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for all the care that you've provided your patients and for your advocacy for health care for all. You know, there are over 350,000 people in Mecklenburg County alone that depend on Medicaid for their care. Medicaid not only saves lives, it creates jobs, and these cuts could result in the loss of close to 31,000 jobs in our state. So let that sink in. Please give Dr. Robinson another. Next up, we are going to hear from Jackie Sandel, a retired letter carrier and member of the Letter Carrier Local 545 here in Charlotte. So please welcome Jackie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this great occasion. As she said, my name is Jacqueline Sandel. I am a retired United States Postal City letter carrier here in Charlotte. And this evening, I can talk about the dismantling of the post office. As far as the post office is concerned and how it impacts, is jeopardizing 7.9 million jobs tied to the postal industry. That includes services like 51.5 million addresses where private carriers like UPS and Amazon deliver that don't deliver, and we do the last mile. That's what they're considered, the last mile. We deliver to those rural areas. Sorry about that.
You're doing great.
Okay. It's my phone. It keeps going off. Okay. But today I'm going to talk about my why. The United States Postal Service afforded me a great quality of life by having a job that provided me with great health care, provided me with annual and sick leave. In my career at the post office, I had 4 major surgeries, and during that time, I was able to receive a paycheck. A lot of jobs They can't say that. They don't have annual, they don't have sick, they have to make do, some of them come back to work sick and everything. But I was able to stay at home for 8 to 12 weeks and I still had a paycheck. I was provided a living wage, which a lot of people don't have. They're working with minimum wage. I was able to buy a house, send my daughters to college, travel, and I never had to worry about food on the table or clothing. I was able to retire with a pension. There's several jobs now, these jobs nowadays do not have a pension. One of my greatest opportunities was to join the National Association of Letter Carriers Union, which taught me the grievance process, protecting our rights and our jobs. As I stated earlier, yes, I'm retired, but don't get it twisted. I'm not gonna sit back and watch everything unfold, okay? No, I'm gonna fight like hell for workers' rights. I will fight like hell for living wages. I will fight like hell for job security. In closing, my question for Senator Tillis is, will you join the fight and fight for job security, a living wage, workers' rights, and better working conditions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for your testimony and for your long service as a letter carrier. Jackie mentioned the nationwide job loss that could happen if the Postal Service is dismantled. There are over 11,000 Postal Service employees in North Carolina that could suffer greatly with these cuts. And we all know that folks, especially in our rural communities, who rely on the Postal Service for things like their medication, would suffer tremendously with these cutbacks or privatization. So thank you again, Jackie. Our final person to testify is Heather Richardson Albee. She is with IA Local 798, representing makeup artists and hairstylists. Please give it up for Heather.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Richardson Albee, and I'm the Southern States Field Representative for IATSE Local 798. For those of you who aren't aware, we are the International Alliance of Theater and Stage Employees, and that is the union behind the entertainment industry. We represent the makeup artists and hairstylists in 22 states on the East Coast. We currently have 2,271 members. Approximately 50% of our members identify as LGBTQ. We are probably wondering, or you're probably wondering, why a middle-aged white heterosexual woman is standing in front of you and talking about LGBTQ. Simply put, it's because I've worked and now represent all of our members and feel as though it's extremely important everyone's voices can be heard. Working in an industry that is as diverse and vibrant as ours is, we and all of our fellow brothers and sisters deserve to be represented by a member of Congress that respects and defends everyone's rights as a person. I would like to share one example of a change that I have seen happen in our union since January of 2025. While attending our General Executive Board convention in February, our Secretary-Treasurer, who identifies as LGBTQ and who is the coordinator and chair of our Pride committees, attended his breakout meeting for all the Pride committee and coordinators in the US and Canada. After leaving that meeting, he and I discussed how for the first time in over a decade, he witnessed his fellow co-chairs, from many of which that were from the southern states, were afraid to organize and participate in the yearly Pride parades for their respective areas. These events have been created as a safe space for all to celebrate their individuality and who they are openly. It was a surprise to both of us that in an industry as diverse as ours, even our brothers and sisters have a legitimate fear of retaliation and being marginalized. Excuse me. My brother and coworker spent the time that they usually would spend to plan for these upcoming events to ignite a fire in his fellow co-chairs, to not get smaller, but to stand taller. Use your voice, be louder than you've ever been, and do not let fear stop the very event that allows the space to be seen, heard, and celebrate in your environment. When I attended my first NC AFL-CIO event in 2023, I felt a sense of unity amongst strangers I'd never felt before. Although I'd been a member of my union for several years, I truly understood the power of strength in numbers. There were so many people from different trades and backgrounds, I had absolutely no idea what to expect. Within 5 minutes of listening to North Carolina AFL-CIO President Mary B. McMillan and feeling the sense of unity in that room, I know this was a family that you can always count on for support. So now, my question for Senator Tillis, I have two, are, number one, can we count on you and our union to protect and allow us to be seen, heard, and celebrated in a safe environment? The next question I have is, will you remain in support of the 2025 PAPTA bill, which is the Performing Arts Tax Parity Act, after voting against it in 2017? This bill was originally designed to allow qualified performing artists the ability to exercise tax deductions, write-offs for the equipment required, and products that would typically cost them out-of-pocket expenses. They need these write-offs to perform their jobs. That's my question for Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Heather, for that testimony. Thank you for lifting up the fear and intimidation that our LGBTQIA family feel. Thank you so much for that. Give Heather another round of applause. I want to thank all of the folks who testified. I know it's not easy to get up here and tell your stories, so thank you. Another round for all of us. In a minute, we are going to hear responses from the leaders on our listening panel, but I want to first read a few of the questions that you filled out for Tillis. And if you didn't get a chance to fill out a postcard to Tom Tillis, please be sure to do that before you leave. What are you going to do to help the Charlotte airport workers who are trying to make life better for themselves? Senator, can you elaborate on your plan for addressing the termination of executed union contracts for federal employees? That's right. I'm a veteran and a VA employee. What are you going to do, Senator, to keep our VA hospitals open and funded? My father is 90 years old and has dementia. Last year I realized I could no longer provide the care he needed. Thankfully, he qualified for Medicaid and is now in a dementia-focused nursing home. If Medicaid's cut, I don't know what I will do or where my father will go. Senator Tillis, how would you feel if your parents depended on Medicaid for their care? My friend recently lost her job as a federal employee. She has stage 4 breast cancer and is in the middle of chemo treatments. She can't afford the COBRA payments to keep her health insurance, and transitioning to a plan under the ACA could mean an interruption in treatments and a change in doctors. Layoffs have life and death consequences. Senator Tillis, what would you say to my friend whose life depends on continuing these treatments?
Wow.
How many of you would like to hear Senator Tillis answer these questions? I really wish that Senator Tillis was here to listen and to respond, because congressional leaders right now are completely out of touch with their constituents back home. They need to understand that we working folks, we don't want ideological grandstanding. We don't want our elected officials to use public policy to settle personal grudges. Let them put food on the table, pay their rent, protect our retirement. You heard from all of the folks who testified how our communities, our citizens, our economy, all suffer when essential government services are decimated. I want to give our community leaders an opportunity to take a couple minutes to respond, to let us know how you're going to take back and amplify the stories and the testimony you heard tonight. And I have a cordless mic. I can start it on this end with Reverend Dr. Rodney Seville.
First off, I just want to say thank you to all the people that testified tonight, all those people who lifted up their voice with great courage to talk about what they would want their senator to say to them. I think it's necessary for people who we hire to represent us to actually come and hear our voices. What do you all think? Yeah. This is not the first time Tillis hasn't showed up. I remember going to the General Assembly building when he was in the General Assembly and trying to track him down and having him sneak out the back door of his office to run away from us when we were there with the Moral Monday movement. So this is sort of habitual for him. I don't think we should ever elect anyone who doesn't want to hear from the people. What do you think? Well, all of those things that you've said that you want the senator to respond to are things that I think the senator should respond to. Whether we're talking about the rights of indigenous American populations to have access to health care, whether we're talking about the rights of workers, people who work in the postal systems, people who work as migrants in our system, to have their thoughts and concerns heard of, it's significant. I have to admit that I have a conflict of interest here, because Dr. Robinson was my doctor. Not only was he my doctor, he saved my mother's life. This man about the need to protect and expand Medicaid, to make sure that we protect it, that we expand and protect Medicare so that we have a single-payer system. If we have health care that really does reach each and every one of us, I'm listening, and I'm going to make sure that that voice is heard wherever we go. And my dear sister who spoke at the end there, how do we make sure that we protect everybody? LGBTQIA+ people need to have their voices heard, and they need to have people that are in office who will always make sure that their rights are protected and their lives are respected. All of you have said things that we need to make sure are clear to all the people that are running our nation. And guess what? If they don't represent us, then they don't need to work for us anymore. Amen?
Sebastian?
Thank you so much. I'm honestly so happy to be here and just listen to all the stories. Every single month for this year, I've attended the Central Labor Council meeting, decided to step up because this is not a moment for passive labor movement. This is a moment where we have to be active, because I've never seen these sort of attacks on our unions in my lifetime. We cannot just stand by and watch our brothers and sisters lose their jobs.
Amen.
As I'm talking about these issues and reflecting on everyone that spoke here tonight, I'm realizing we all are under attack.
Right.
But there's There's strong solidarity in this room, and we are not powerless. We need to show this support, though. We need to show this support to our community, at our union halls, at our government centers. If folks like Tom Tillis aren't showing up here, let's show up at their door. We got to go down to Congress and knock on every single door. Let's do that.
Amen.
If there's any way that we can help y'all to accomplish this, let us know. We have half our CLC membership or executive board is here. Talk to us. How can we coordinate this? How can we get that message out there? We are willing to help you. You know, I heard the stories from our, also not just our union brothers and sisters, but our immigrant community. You can probably tell I have a little bit of an accent, right? Because I am an immigrant myself. And that's why that community is so strong and so important to me. And one of the first things, I was sworn in for the CLC just in February. I didn't know that this was what we would have to deal with. But one of the first calls, we actually talked to our brother actually here, Hector from Action NC. We said, let's get together, labor and our immigrant communities, let's march together. And we decided that in a couple weeks we'll get together, we'll send that message that we are not afraid, we will stand up for labor rights, we will stand up for immigrant rights, we will fight back. Let's fight together for the next 4 years. Let's win the next few elections. Let's protect all our folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sebastian. Mary Jose.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Great. I want to say as well, echoing, thank you all for speaking. It has truly been, I am grateful to be in your presence today and hear from you. I want to echo what has been said before me, but I think that for me, the thing that is really present right now is the importance of recognizing and speaking about our intersectionality. As I was sitting here and listening to the stories about the indigenous folks in Alaska, the government cuts and takeaways for veterans, cuts to Medicaid and lack of health care, I am thinking about my sister who's coming back from the Navy after 10 years and doesn't know what's happening, has no plan, and is really anxious about finding a job. I'm thinking about my father who needs a hernia repair surgery and doesn't have health care and can't afford to have the surgery. I'm thinking about indigenous communities in Alaska and how parks are being stripped of park rangers and our lands are no longer being cared for. But I think most importantly, I think of how connected these all are, right? If I as one person can sit here and connect to each of these narratives, right? Healthcare, indigenous folks, land stewardship, workers' rights, right? I think about my dad as a painter, my mom's she cleans houses, right? And what that means in terms of protections for all of our workers and the overlap with our immigrant community. And so for me, what is most present today is carrying these stories with me and continuing to look, as Sebastian said, for how we work together. This is not the time to be quiet. This is the time to hold our electeds accountable and do so publicly and loudly. We truly have so much power in this room. And I know that we are all here today, and I wrote this just from listening. We are asking for workers' rights, living wages, dignity, job security, healthcare, but ultimately we're asking for a cease of the attacks on our communities. We are tired, we are not taking it anymore, and we have to say stop. Enough is enough. And so I think that I have been doing immigrants' rights advocacy for 15 years. Since I was a kid, Tillis has been around for quite a long time. I know him for a very long time, and it is no surprise that he is not here. I have had a few interactions with him where he runs, but I am here to say if our electeds are not going to listen to us and are not going to show up, we need new people to represent us, and we have to make that happen now.
Well, thank you, and it's always hard going last, right? I want to start by thanking all of the speakers. Your stories, your words, your courage for getting up here to speak, thank you. And then I want to immediately say, shame on you, Tom Tillis, for not being here. As each and every one of you spoke, I didn't hear any reference of a political party. No partisanship at all. And as an elected official, it's kind of hard sometimes to snap out of it. But it wasn't hard tonight, because at every single moment, I was reminded that these aren't partisan issues. These are human issues. And when you ask how will I take these stories and these testimonies back to Raleigh, I'm going to take a bit of what you all did tonight, and I'm going to leave the politics and the partisanship at the door. I'm going to speak to my colleagues as humans and remind them that the people that they represent, regardless of the color that they wear on their back or the letter that is beside their name, and the people that I represent, they are humans. And these are their concerns. This is what keeps them up at night. This is what they're at the dinner tables discussing. They're not talking about, oh, well, that guy's a Democrat, or that guy's a Republican. They're not. And that's the same thing that I hear at every single town hall that I've been to. Every time I'm speaking with a constituent that we weren't even supposed to be talking about everything going on. Maybe I was just in a store and I decided to introduce myself to somebody and we start talking. They're never talking about a party. They're just talking about policies that impact them on a day-to-day basis. And it always reminds me of why I got into this work in the first place, because I care about people, not parties. I brought up that folio in this evening because I was going to take notes in here. I can't tell you how many files and drawers I have of yellow pages that I've ripped up and that I have promised to go back and look at, and that I'm not going to lie to you, I haven't at all. When I saw these postcards here, I was excited because I have a drawer in my desk in Raleigh that is about the perfect size for these. That I have one other letter in there that was written to me by a student at a school here in Charlotte who was advocating on behalf of accessing college. Like a fifth grader, I can't remember exactly what grade she in. She's got some time before she's got to worry about school. But she was talking about how concerned she was about her ability to afford it. And then at the end, she wrote me a preamble of the Constitution, all handwritten. And I told her that that letter would never leave my desk. And I want to tell each of the speakers, the 6 of you, I've got your names here. I may try to reach out to you at some point soon. Your words will never leave my desk either. Because that is why you elect us to do this job, is to represent your voices, to represent your concerns. And Jackie, will join you in fighting like hell in Raleigh, because under this administration, I'm sure our federal government is going to fail us. And in this budget year here in North Carolina, I will fight like hell to make sure that our state government doesn't fail us too. And if it does, I will fight like hell to make sure that everyone that needs to fail each and every one of you does not get to keep their seat going forward, because that is not what we need in Charlotte. It is not what we need in Mecklenburg, North Carolina, or this entire country. It's not. Because I will be fighting like hell with you. So thank you all again for joining us, and thank you for the speakers.
Thank you, Representative Lopez. I want to thank all of the leaders on this panel. I really appreciate you lifting up the power of our solidarity. So please give our listening panel a round of applause. We are going to send the postcards and questions to Senator Tillis, so if you didn't fill one out, you'll have an opportunity to do that before you leave. As we said at the beginning, we are going to compile the stories and testimonies into a report that we can send to Senator Tillis and share with other elected officials, because as Representative Lopez said, they need to understand that this is not about partisan politics. This is about doing what's best for you and me and our neighbors. It's about creating an economy that works for all of us, ensuring the success of the next generation, and providing a strong safety net for the most vulnerable among us. Folks, we have got to keep the pressure up on Senator Tillis and our other elected officials to stand up for working people. So I'm going to ask everybody here tonight, hopefully you picked up this sheet, 2 actions to take. First, I would ask you to call Senator Tillis's office. Ask him some of the questions that folks had tonight. Tell him or his staff, likely his staff, your story. Demand that he do what's best for his constituents. And then I hope that you will say, count me in, to get 2 or 3 other people to make those calls. So if you're willing to do that, let me hear you say, count me in. Count me in. Awesome. We also want you to join the Department of People Who Work for a Living. So you can go to the website. That way you can stay informed about events and try and keep track of all the federal acts. If you have not told your story yet, there'll be an opportunity when we conclude to tell your story to the videographer so that that can be part of the testimony that we give to elected officials. You can also use that QR code to tell your story at home. And there are going to be plenty of other upcoming events and protests coming up soon. So please tell your neighbors, your friends, your family that now is the time to show up, stand up, and speak up, because together, that's how we win justice for federal workers and justice for all of us. Yes. Never forget we have the power. Yes. And together we can make a difference. Yes. So, this is how we're going to end tonight. I'm going to do a brief spoken word. Some of you know I like to bust a rhyme every now and then. And then we are all going to do a group photo with Senator Tillis. And we're going to do that in the audience. Is that right, Jeremy? So when I conclude the poem, we're going to ask folks who are able to stand with your signs. We'll bring Tillis down to the audience. So here's the poem. We must fight back against this billionaire coup, this takeover by a very rich few. None of us elected Elon Musk, but there he is in the West Wing with a president who acts like a king. Billionaires focused on downsizing, demonizing, demoralizing, while the costs of food, gas, rent are rising and rising. And with this trade war, prepare to pay even more. Stocks are tanking on Wall Street. More people can't make ends meet. Immigrants forced to flee what's supposed to be the land of the free. Services slashed for our veterans, our seniors, our communities, as billionaire Musk wields a chainsaw with impunity. Federal workers stripped of their union rights in the hope that would end our fight, but try as they might, we will not be silent. Working people stand united, defiant. Across the nation, we are taking to the street, and officials like Tillis can feel the heat, knowing next election they can be beat. Yeah. You see, the Department of People Who Work for a Living is just the beginning. We will educate and agitate. We will protest and we will not rest, because we know that worker solidarity is how we win shared prosperity. Together is how we win. Together we will win. I say together we win, you say count me in. Together we win, count me in. Together we win, count me in. Together we win, count me in. Thank you, family. Let's stand strong and stand together until there's justice for all of us. So let's all gather, hold the signs, and we're going to have our photographer help direct us. We'll get Tillis off the stage, and we'll take a group photo.